of minutes past. We've got a good 20 people involved. I think it is time we should get started. So welcome everyone to this data governance get together. The first one kind of done as a hybrid, online and in person. This grew up of a smaller session that we did with a very focused group of data governance people working in insurance. What we've done now, we've done a few sessions of that. This is going to be like a wider session with our guest speaker and a chance to open it up and speak a bit more widely. And our guest speaker, I'm very delighted to welcome on the screen next to me.
Hey.
Neil Burge, over from Singapore for a short time. We've grabbed him while he's here. Let's let somebody else in. Neil is here from Singapore. He is speaking on the subject of the human side of data governance. And I think many of us have learned all the technical skills and can put a framework in place and design policies and rules and DQ rules and so on. But we all know it's really, really hard just to get people to buy into it and to live it and to join in and to do that for us. And so what Neil's going to do is go through some of the ideas about how we make that real. So I will let some more people in and then pass over.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can do it from here to let people in.
Yeah, I was going to say we still have a few.
Still have a few
Coming through. So hello everyone. Thanks Charles, and thanks for the opportunity to turn up and speak here today. It's very nice to meet you all. And if I'm not already connected, if you want to connect on LinkedIn or whatever and share ideas, it's always good to expand the network. As Charles said, there's sort of a few elements to this, and in my experience, we came up from a background of using technology to try and improve data. And there's no harm in that. We all do it, and we try to better organise and manage data and then work with some of the big platforms in the data governance space. But really, where we saw problems was when you intersected with the people in the organisation that you were going to borrow time from in order to actually get them to come and help and to contribute and to do their work. Because let's face it, most people are probably overburdened with work already. We're asking them to do something else and something different, which is always a bit more of a challenge. And so really this sort of came about from a bit of a curiosity of mine of how do we make this easier? How do we make sure that there are more engagement and less sort of pushback on the ideas that we've got? And so we've done quite a lot of digging into it. And one of the big problems people say is that I'm banging my head against a brick wall trying to get the business to listen to me. And why won't people listen to me? And why aren't they engaged in what we're doing? And I think that actually, if we look across other disciplines, so marketing and sales people, you're in the business of selling the idea of changing behaviours around data to improve the data in the organisation and to get better engagement. So therefore, you've got to work out how to persuade people to change their behaviour. And over the course of about 20 years, I've realised it's really hard to persuade somebody of anything. In fact, I'd almost go as far to say that you can't persuade anybody to do something they don't want to do. And so therefore, it becomes less about trying to do that, and it becomes more about understanding the people on the other side of the fence and the context and the role that they're taking in your organisation, engaging with them to help them make progress that they want to make in their role with data, and therefore sort of luring them towards you, bringing them into the conversation rather than going out and telling them what to do and whacking them around the head with a stick. So it's a bit of a paradigm shift from telling people this is how things are going to be now to listening to people. And I think that's one of the agenda points that I put up. It's like, how do I get people to listen to me? And most of the time when we say that, it's because we haven't really listened to the people in our business well enough. We're wandering around, we all care about data. We all see the value that data brings. Many of us have spent decades in the field seeing this and being frustrated by it. But your business people may or may not have that. They're working on their challenges. They've got a day job to do. They've got things that they care about. They come with a set of preconceived notions and understanding of data, which varies massively across the organisation. You'll have some people who are real experts and nerds and want to get involved, and you've got others that maybe we might call data illiterate, but they don't all have to be super data literate. If it doesn't impact their job, it's no bad thing. and yet we take this sort of one size fits all approach to telling people and communicating with people. And I'm a firm believer, really, that one size fits no one. So, in order to really change the way things happen in your business, it's imperative that we take a step back and listen to them first. Make the case by putting it in their own words about progress that they're trying to achieve, and relate it back to the data and the data quality problems that we see and we have in the organization. Um, which isn't easy. It's not very scalable. I'm not going to pretend that any of this is straightforward. I'm still learning it myself. But so going back to what I was saying, if you look at sales and marketing, many years ago, I went to a sales training exercise, and they told me that you've got two ears and one mouth, and you should use them in that proportion. Now, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me at that time. And I think learning skills of listening is something that we should teach people in school. And it's all about trying to ask and clarify and deepen your understanding so that you have a real empathetic perspective of the person and the struggles and the challenges that they face on the other side of the fence. Now, I still struggle to do this. I've got techniques and methods that I've learned, and it's something you've just got to keep practicing. But one of the things I think if you think about a business glossary, we're all kind of used to business glossaries, and we go through and we have terms that are used in the business, and then we define what does that term mean in this particular use case, what is this KPI. Yet when I talk to somebody about data, often you accept what they say without drilling into it and getting them to open up and really clarify. So somebody says, "Oh, I want to have better data." And say, well, better than what? We've got to drill into the real meaning behind what they're saying, so that you can understand the context that the business people have. And if you can understand the context in which they're operating in and the struggle they have, you can right size your data governance roles to meet the needs and the ability of those teams to respond at any one time. So that's sort of point one, is to make sure that we are listening to the business. I believe that we're here to help facilitate. We're here to help make the conversation progress. But in order to do that, we've really got to understand the people in our organisation. What is their knowledge of, experience with, appetite for change, and enthusiasm to improve the data? Because if we don't do that, we're going to rush around and start telling people to do various bits and pieces, and it's not linked to something they want to do, and therefore you're going to get pushback. And I guess I sort of think about this. I made a post on LinkedIn that got a load of engagement, actually, where I sort of compared data and analytics to diet and exercise, or data management is the sort of diet and exercise thing. I'm currently, after 2 weeks in the UK, carrying even more excess weight than I might like, but nobody likes to be told that you're unhealthy, you're unfit, go to the gym, eat more. We all know this stuff already. And in the business, it's not like they don't know that they could be better and treat data with more care and attention. They just kind of overlook it and possibly lie to themselves about how good quality the data is in the first place. And so in order to try and make the progress that we want to make, we've got to understand and work with people so that they can see, actually, this isn't me being told to do something and being whacked around the head by the doctor or something like that. It's actually being lured in and building a case for people to engage, and obviously right sizing what that sort of diet and exercise is for their data to meet the needs and the appetite and the ability for the business to actually execute. So it's important that we go and do that. Now, I've seen a bunch of different data strategies and data communications, and one of my big bugbears is that they typically are named with. So I saw one where it was a data first manifesto. Now, obviously, I'm a huge data fan. I love this, and I want to see us use our data and get real value out of the data that we've got. But if I'm walking into the organisation saying data's first, I'm inadvertently telling you that whatever you do for the organisation is now second and less important. So I think we've got to get our messaging right, and it's got to be about, well, how can we be there as the facilitator and the supporter of the organisation so that they can make whatever progress they make, and give us time back. So, if we can work with them, collaborate with them, and really develop our understanding of what do each individual people. Oh, sorry, Charles.
So Nigel, got a question. Got a question came in from the bit from. Is it better to do questions as you talk, or do you want to do them at the end?
No, far away.
Okay, so Nigel, but anyone who wants to ask a question, do it on the chat. If you don't want to say your name, then just say Anon, and I'll not say that what your name is, but this one's from Nigel. He said, if there's no appetite for change for data governance from the business, is it just a non-starter, or is there a way that you can start turning it around and getting people to want to do it?
Um, it's a good question. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a non-starter, but obviously you have more work to do than when you have somebody that's enthusiastic. Clearly, you've got to take a step back and start to look. So I do talk to a lot of people who just can't get time and agenda with senior leaders to understand how data is going to support the organisation and make the case for change. So we've worked with people where we've had to go and get the annual report and work through it and say, well, look, here's how data is going to support this initiative. Nobody's going to tell us what they want out of data. And in many cases, it's unfair of us to ask, because if they're not really aware of what data could do for them or where it's holding them back, then going in and saying, well, what are your problems with data? They don't know in many cases, and it's not their job to know. So it is harder, but you can do it. You just need to go and talk to the people and listen to the people and start to, as I said, get that empathetic perspective of what is it that they're really doing in the organisation? What does a day in their life look like? And where are they frustrated by and struggling with data? And then you can use that in their own words to say, okay, you are trying to increase market share, or you're trying to reduce costs in the organisation. Here's where data at the moment is holding you back. Here's the cost to the business of doing that. And if we changed, here's what the future will look like, where that is, the progress they want to make. And then you're more likely to get buy-in and some sort of.
So you're tying the data
progress
into what they want to get in their day job. So the day job is not data, but to
Correct.
achieve getting the accounts out on time and accurate.
Yep.
By the way, mate, you've got to get a load of data that's good and
Yeah, exactly.
governed and high quality. And
So you look at it. I mean, I've worked in the insurance space, did a lot of work around the IFRS 17 changes, things like that. Huge inefficiencies in a lot of finance departments. The ability to actually process all of that data, but nobody thinks about it. They just say, oh, my finance team they're taking 3 months to close the books or something like this. Now, if you unpack that, there's probably a lot of data related issues that are causing that problem. And if we all work together to get rid of that, then their problem goes away. But they don't see that. They see a bunch of people working late at night, then or an outsourced centre that they've sent off this stuff to, and they're frustrated that they can't get the books and records out, or they're not up, or they're signing off something that they just can't substantiate or don't believe in.
because what we do is foundational.
Exactly. But they don't see the data as the problem. There'll be something else. They see a business process problem or something like that. So I don't know whether that's the answer that you look for. It is harder, but there will be data problems everywhere in your organisation unless you've got some sort of data management program in place. And even when you have, there'll still be plenty of opportunity there. So it's really about saying, okay, who might our supporters be? Who's going to have the biggest problem or opportunity, and how can I understand the progress that they're trying to make and the struggles that are preventing that right now, and then go and do my homework to say, well, here's where data plays its part, and therefore here's where this can benefit you.
And I think about you answer the second question that came through as you were speaking, which is a question about business case for data governance, specifically in the insurance industry. But I think the same applies. It's not about all your data; it's about what are you trying to achieve, whether it's premium, claims, underwriting, reinsurance, and tying it back and say, well, actually, to achieve that thing you want, it's about you need the data. And hey, guess what? I've got a way to help you data. It's called data governance.
Yeah. Exactly, and so I appreciate that this this group comes together for insurance. One of the things I love about data and data governance is it is so universal. The same problems exist. Yes, you've got underwriting and claims and policies and things like that, but you'll have the same problems with poor customer data or untimely data reaching people to make decisions, and having struggles to have a single view of the customer, things like that. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, everybody struggles with that. And so really, the heart of this is the struggling moment that there are people in your organization and they have their day job, and it isn't data, it doesn't have data anywhere in its title, but they are struggling to make progress. They come in every day, and unless you find something that's sort of one of the three of their top 5 or top 8 priorities, they're probably not going to want to talk to you because they'll be focused on solving a particular problem. They aren't necessarily looking for data in that problem. They may not understand what data is or anything like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's not what they're paid to do. What is it that they're trying to achieve, and what progress do they want to make? And that's the kind of context that you're looking for. When you find that, you've got to look at whether this is a big enough problem for them. And there are sort of 4 forces that act on any of us whenever we make any change whatsoever. The first is a sort of push. So, and this is something that happens in the past, and you typically look for a phrase like, when I am attempting to achieve X and I struggle because of some reason. And so what is it that's pushing them to change? And it could be, here in the UK, I've seen on the news, everybody's worried about an upcoming recession or whatever that might be. So these kinds of macroeconomic changes, or people to change their role, or a company gets acquired, when some event occurs external to me, it causes me to change my priorities and to look, and there might be something else I'm struggling with. Then you look at the pull of the future, so that there's some future gain. It's like, so if it's me in accounts, and it's like, when my team are working overtime and unable to produce books, help me reduce that time burden, make things more efficient, so we can reduce the costs in our department, and and help with the cost control efforts that the company's asking us to make. So there's something like there's a push that's triggering somebody to have to change, and a pull that's luring them in. But at the same time, you're then going to take, well, in order to do this, we're going to have to put a focus on data. We're going to have to change your work. There'll be business process changes. There may be system changes. We might need some of your time to do not your job, but to help us with the data. And so when anything like that, there's 2 forces that prevent progress and stop us from changing. And the first is anxiety, which is always a question. And you might have somebody saying, I just don't understand it. Every time they come and talk data, it's gobbledygook to me. So that that causes people to not want to engage and not want to change. Is it too complicated? Will it cost too much of my time or money? All of those anxieties prevent your people from making progress, even if there's quite strong pushes and pulls. And then the last one is a set of habits. So everybody's got habits. I've got some bad ones, hence my hence the extra baggage I'm carrying on my belly on the way home on the flight. But what are the habits that you've got to overcome? Because people, you might look and say, well, hey, here's how data can help you make better progress, and it can reduce the close times of your books or whatever. But if they've already got a bunch of workarounds and they're kind of used to them and familiar with them, there can be some inertia there, and that holds you back. So it's really understanding, look at the execs in your organization, but look at the middle management and what I call the D-suite, the people who actually do the work in the organization. What are they struggling with, and what are the contexts that exist that create the demand for better data or prevent us from doing that? And if we can work that out, we can create customized messages. And in many cases, I'm an advocate that one size fits no one. So we don't just have a single data steward role where everybody does exactly the same thing, because actually in the business there are contexts where somebody's got more time, more enthusiasm, and they're going to come in and engage, and others, for maybe it's an important project that they've got on, we can't make the progress in that department because it's they've got other things that are a higher priority than data, whether we like it or not. And so it's about using this to say, okay, what are the contexts in the organization where better data can drive progress, can help unlock the potential of the organization, and how do we right size what we're going to do to get more buy-in, to get more enthusiasm around this, and to get people to understand that data, whilst it may not be their day job, it is preventing them making progress in many cases, or it has the opportunity to help them make better progress, make more money, expand the business, grow their role, do things better. So, sorry, it's probably a very long-winded answer to that question, but my soapbox.
But isn't it the most important thing? Because we're talking about engaged people, and without the people, you haven't got a data governance program.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the times, if you read through any of the books on it, it talks data governance as change management. Read through a lot of the change management stuff, and I personally, I believe you should go back, like I said, to the sales and marketing disciplines, because they have to go and persuade somebody outside your organization that today's the day I'm going to come and spend some money here, and that's really what you've got to get in your mind. Today's the day we're going to down tools on whatever we're working on, and we're going to pick them up and go and work on our data, because it's going to help us make more progress in the future. And if we can't get buy-in from the people, then you'll, I don't want to say you're wasting your time, but you're going to spin your wheels quite aggressively, unfortunately.
It makes me feel that you almost want to send everyone in the data team on a sales and marketing course. You're not going to turn them into salesmen, but actually those are the skills you need to get your DG out there.
Yes, it's I hate it the word soft skills, because actually they're harder than some of the hard skills in many ways, because we're just not trained to do it. Like I said, listening skills. People hear, but they attach meaning to what you're saying. So we've all got this sort of mental scaffold of our experiences, and if I say something, you're trying to bolt it on to a bit of your mental scaffold where you think it makes most sense. That may or may not be what I'm actually trying to communicate to people today. And so actually trying to listen, and it's very hard in these big group sessions to do it. It's much easier in one-on-ones. So now, if ever I'm trying to do this in an organization, I insist on just sitting down one-on-one with somebody. Typically, I like what COVID's provided us in terms of the remote work, because you can record the session and you can go back afterwards and you can listen through it. And really what you're trying to understand is the sort of, what was it that caused somebody to say, today's the day we're going to invest in data and make an improvement to our data? Because that's what tells you both where they're coming from and where they want to go to.
Okay, so here's the people that I've seen a lot. You want your people to come to your session or meeting to explain what you're going to do. And there's some who want to come and they attend, they listen.
Yep.
Brilliant. There's some who are just not interested at all.
Yep.
And then you have to fight the good fight with them.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then there's the ones who say yes with a big smile, because they're really keen, but then don't show.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the yes that is actually a no, but they hide under a yes.
Yeah, and so in that one there's a great book actually for anybody who wants to improve their listening skills. It's called, I don't know, I've got to remember it. It's a guy called Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Anyway, I was recommended this book, and you read through it. And this guy, Chris Voss, was actually a FBI hostage negotiator. And now he's turned this into kind of a business consulting thing of how do we make better kind of decisions. You don't want to get to yes, you want to get to no. So if somebody says yes, one of the things in his book is yes is nothing without how. So, instead, let's get to no. Let's go and find the point where somebody says, no, I'm not doing that. So great. So why is it that you can't do that? What might you do instead? Explore the sort of the underlying issues that prevent people from engaging. So yes, I think you're completely right. Those people are hard. The ones that don't engage at all, you've got to decide whether you want to spend your time and effort on those. If they are the most important people in your organisation, and without them, it's never going to go, then go and focus your attention there. Whereas if they are, just going to sort of throw hand grenades from the sidelines, maybe sort of keep them further away whilst you build up, a case. I think somebody asked about business case.
Yeah.
But it's not just about building the business case, it's about tracking your performance and seeing what is the outcome of your work, so that those people that said no, eventually they start peering in and seeing that others in the organisation are getting value from it, and sort of luring them in that way. But I think I said at the outset, I just don't believe you can persuade anybody to do anything if they don't want to do it. So you've got to understand what is it they do want to do, and sort of build a case
back to
for
what you
data
said earlier on.
governance that or better data management that helps that.
Yeah, and just in the chat here, we're saying it's always seemed to be that implementing data governance equality is change management, and the benefits need to be communicated and sold.
Yeah,
Technology approach comes second because buy-in
yeah.
is required first. So again, it all speaks to what you're saying.
It does, and the other thing, there was another book I read that was great called The End of Average by Todd Rose, and he this sort of tyranny of an average that we try and make one size fit all, but actually we make one size fit no one. You've got to realise that the context changes everything. Context what creates meaning and value for the organisation. So understand the context of the different parts of your business that you're trying to engage, and right size what you're asking them to do and what they're going to get out of it, depending on their ambition and their enthusiasm and their willingness to engage. Because and also be aware that context changes. Just because we've decided all this today, 2 months time maybe we've been acquired, or the CEO's been fired and we've got a new direction, and that sort of keeps jumbling things up. So be prepared to be flexible as well, and that's really where the listening piece comes in, rather than going out and pushing and if it's all push communication, I'm often pushing people away. Whereas if I'm listening and they feel that I'm there to help them and serve them, and it's in their best interests, that's pulling people towards me, and that's making them more likely to want to engage. But yeah, there's those two books. I think definitely the first one. There's a bunch of what he calls tactical empathy, which obviously they applied with these various scenarios. But just a couple of those techniques, apply them every day in every conversation, and try to have better conversations and listen more than you speak. I actually do it now when I record my sessions, and I try to set myself a goal of the other person talking for at least 70% of the meeting time, because you can see it on GoToMeeting, which is the one I use. I haven't got there yet. I think 60 something was my high score, but it's really, if I'm talking, I'm not listening.
How to make a note of that, so you actually can see the percentage of who says how much.
Yeah, it comes up on GoToMeeting. I don't know whether it does on Teams or anything like that, but it tells you how much of the meeting you were talking versus somebody else. And so if I'm talking more than 50% of the time, I've definitely failed in that meeting, because that's a broadcast, but it's not a conversation.
Great. So looking back to sort of what we said at the start, so we talked about why should my business listen to me? I think we've kind of explained about the pain points. Are we sure we've listened to them? Well, you could prove it. You've got the numbers.
Well, indeed, yeah.
So you then talk about how do you get a diverse group of people on the same page?
Yeah, and that really is about unpacking the language that people are using to really truly understand what they mean when they say something. Because otherwise you often sit in meetings and everybody's talking about data governance, they're talking about data management, talking about data quality. But I see it a lot actually on the training courses that we do for people with CDMP training. Many people get what is high quality data wrong. So people think that high quality data has to have, all of these attributes have to be great, all of the dimensions have to be conformed properly. Actually, high quality data is not up to me to judge. It's the person that's going to use the data that gets to say, is this fit for purpose or not? And so when you say high quality data, or you talk about data quality, is what you're saying what everybody else is hearing, and can you get them to play back that understanding to you so that you can get them onto the same page with you, if that makes sense? Probably mouthful of marbles, I think, speaking on that one. But you generally, if I give you an example of this one, and apologies if you're only scared of dogs, but I often say, well, think of a dog, and the one that you're thinking of right now, it could be like a golden retriever, or it could be a tiny little spaniel or something like this. But everybody understands the word dog, but whatever's popped up into everybody's head around here is very unlikely to be the very same dog that I'm thinking of right now. And so whenever we're using language in e-communications, it's very easy to hear something. So, oh yes, yeah, we're going to improve the quality of our data. Well, what are you going to do to improve it? So going back to this, yes is nothing without how. So talk it through, make sure that there's this common understanding and that everybody is actually on the same page, and that when we say something, that's what we mean, which obviously is the purpose of a business glossary in an organization, but we don't tend to do it in our conversations. If that makes
I'm,
sense.
I'm going to divert just. I can put my own questions in.
Yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
no, maybe I should even cross camera a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here to the side the whole time. So, business glossary,
Yep.
define the whole world and then let people come, or just define bit by bit as people ask the question.
I think being big bang anything is always risky, because you run off building something, and this sort of build it and they will come mentality. I don't believe that whatsoever. I think you have to go and engage with an organisation, work out what they need to find, start to build up the terminology, do it slowly, but prove that it's got some value to the organisation, and then hopefully people come and contribute to it because they're getting something from it. But
But I
too
guess the
many times,
challenge to that would be you built your dictionary or glossary very, very slowly.
yeah,
Someone comes along, looks for the term that they know. Oh, it's not there.
yeah,
You guys don't know anything.
yeah. No, obviously that's a risk. Clearly that it depends on how you've communicated this. So one of the problems we had early on, actually, with one of the big data governance technologies, the data team bought it, they implemented it, they ingested all of the organization's data, and they had the CEO say in this big public announcement, come and use this new tool that we've bought for you. It's going to tell you about your data, but don't actually organized or done anything. The users all came, they looked, and they're like, what is this? Why am I here?
Was
And then,
basically an empty box.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then they run away. So again, it's understanding why should somebody come to this? How do we get to the point where they say today's the day I'm coming to the business glossary? To what is it you're trying to achieve? And if they're interested in coming to get something, then we need to piggyback on that interest to get them to contribute to it as well, so that you're leaving that paper trail behind for other people to find and follow up afterwards. So sort of setting expectations, I think, is the important part there, because if you do start broadcasting this is suddenly going to solve all the world's problems,
It's false expectations.
Absolutely.
So I've got another question that came in. Could you please share with me what kind of data you made the data quality assessment in your company? So saying customer information, master data. So I guess maybe it's your personal experience where you've been. What sort of data, maybe what data are you prioritizing?
So again, I think that we got to flip that. So change that paradigm around. It's not what I'm prioritizing, because it's not my data. It's not on me to prioritize it. It's saying what is the most important information for the organization? What is the data quality that they need in order to do their job? What is it today? And then how do we go and use that to prioritize things? But we're sort of facilitators in many ways. We're here to help somebody prioritize the data.
So we can't answer your question.
Things.
We know what works, and even I know. So we both help externally lots of different clients.
Yep.
It's with this client we focus here, but that client we do a complete different approach.
Yep.
Because they're in a different world.
Yeah,
and it could be the same industry, very like literally an organization that looks and smells exactly the same.
Yep.
But under the skin, really, really different way of operating.
Yeah, correct. And you can think about it. I don't know. We're talking insurance industry here. The history of the organisation is likely to determine why data is the way it is today. So in lots of organisations, maybe grown by acquisition, and you've just got completely different definitions of things around the organisation, and maybe that's causing a problem for an organisation that's grown by acquisition versus one that's grown organically, and maybe they've got problems with their claim data or something like that. So you can't come in and say customer data is the most important data, because maybe it's already pretty well organised because the organisation's had to keep it well governed previously, or just happen to have good teams. So yeah, it's not on us to tell somebody what to do. It's on us to listen and understand what they're trying to achieve, and use that to put a price on improving the data, put a price on how much effort it's going to take to unlock the benefit, and then work with them to see what they're willing to invest, so that they're going to make the progress they make, and they help us do our job.
Great. One thing is the same person asked a question said earlier on. I think change any part of data governance. You can't implement data governance by starting change management. That's right. It's not change on its own, but change is a big part of delivering, but we still need the meat of the data governance and the framework and
Yeah.
quality, lineage,
So
ownership.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, you are going to change somebody's behaviour. If today they're coming in and they are typing in whatever they want into every field, or not filling fields in because nobody's told them they have to. If there's no engagement to talk about data quality or anything like this, by its very nature, you are going to change somebody's role the way that they do it. You can go in and do that with a big stick and say, hey, this is what you're doing right now, and you're not going to win many friends by doing it. Or you can go in and try and understand what they're going to get from it and then sell it to them in their own words with the progress they're trying to make.
The next bullet point on your summary, that's the fun one.
What's that?
Things that have gone wrong. Real examples that we can avoid.
Yeah, so I brought one up, the sort of data first manifesto that I saw, and I mean that one's it's harmless until it's not. The words we use do carry weight and meaning, and if I'm telling you that data's first, I'm telling you you're second. I've seen some other shocking ones where you look at the value that organisations are going to unlock, and there's sort of big hockey stick where suddenly the data monetization team were going to generate 5 times more revenue than the actual business did. Now, I believe in the value of data, and I'm sure it's possible, but it just smacks of unrealistic targets. And if you walk in with stuff like that, then people just, they may say yes to your face, but secretly they're thinking there's no chance this is ever going to happen. So make sure what you're communicating is realistic and sensible and achievable. And again, couch it in the progress they're trying to make and the investment that they're going to put in.
And I guess also when you're talking to the C-suite,
Yeah,
they look at lots of projects as well. They can tell if what you're promising just feels and smells impossible.
yeah, it doesn't
And they'll
pass the
go,
smell
because
test.
they're also looking at marketing projects, HR projects, finance transformation projects. So I think sometimes we go, but it's so obvious you need to do this data quality program.
Yeah,
Why can the idiot CEO not understand?
yeah,
And so, well, actually, because they can look at the whole spectrum, what they can go, you know what, we're actually better off opening a new warehouse in this country over there,
yeah,
and that will get us a return way bigger than what your DQ tool will.
yeah.
And obviously, we can't see that spectrum. We just are our own little world.
And if you go back to the sort of premise here of are you really listening to your organisation? Why won't they listen to me? And to your point, anytime you catch yourself saying, "Oh, the CEO's an idiot. He doesn't get this." Whose fault's that? It's not his fault. It's your fault because you haven't listened to him and made the case to do it. And the irrational becomes rational with context. So understanding the context of everything that person is attempting to do, all of a sudden, even if data is going to deliver a massive return, as you said, if there's a warehouse project that's going to consume time and money and resources and effort that is going to deliver more than the data project, unfortunately, the right decision is to go and invest in the warehouse project. So we've got to be wary of the fact that, yes, we want this. We'd like more progress than we're seeing, but we've got to be realistic with ourselves as well about what's achievable in the next 6 months, 12 months, because this is a long-term thing. It's not going away. It's only going to grow in importance, I believe, but it does take time to get there as well.
So for those of us, and I think data management, data governance as a piece of work is still quite early stage. I mean, yes, people have been doing it 10, 15 years in some cases,
Yep.
but that's still quite young as discipline compared to finance.
Yeah, I suppose so.
So I guess anyone on this call is still almost in at the start.
Yeah.
And will have a more influential role as their career progresses in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. And one of the things to everybody here, if you are turning up and you're thinking, oh, I really struggle with this, or I'm no good at this, don't feel bad. Everybody's in the same boat. I get to, one of the benefits that I think you probably get as well, Charles, is I get to talk to lots of different people struggling with this, and you see many, many different flavors of the same struggle. Doesn't make your struggle any easier, I'm afraid, but knowing that it's not just you, it's not just your organization. And one of the things I love about the data community, you have events like this and people come together that seem pretty open, pretty engaged and willing to try and share, this is what's worked for me, can that work in your organization, and what's worked for you. So I think there's having this network and the people on this is it's one of the reasons I love to turn up to events like this.
That's it. And I think the industry thing you mentioned yourself, it's not industry specific, it works across. Certainly, I find, yes, I happen to work with a lot of insurers because that's the way the market works.
Yep.
But you're right, it all applies across I was at a data talk once, and it was London Transport, who run the tube and the buses and everything else
Yep.
in the capital here. And they have an issue, which is if you change the timing of a traffic light, then you can change a traffic jam 5 miles down the road
Yep.
because the delay causes every other road to
Yeah.
clash. And they did it as a hackathon. I said, can anyone help us understand better when we change a light here, what happens?
Yep.
And the winning team were a bunch of marine biologists
Okay.
who said, actually, the flow of traffic through the roads is like plankton.
Okay.
And the way that they go through the sea, and there's more, they get crowded.
Yeah.
And they said, and that was all studied by scientists 50, 60 years ago. And we've got the formulas and we've got the plans, and we can
Oh,
actually
right.
just
Okay.
apply it to you.
Yep.
And without too much tweaking, they could do quite a very effective job.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can always learn something from other industries. So yeah, don't just focus on this because people are talking the same language as you. Focus on who solved this problem before, and as you say, it may well be somebody outside of your industry. For anybody who's working on complex challenges like that, not related to this subject, but there's a great book called Link by Laurie and Pratt on decision intelligence and being able to build up models of this. We use it in our data strategy engagements as a framework to look at cause and effect and the complex systems, because one of the big problems you see is you spot a problem and you come up with a solution to it, and the solution fixes the problem you had and it creates two new problems that you didn't anticipate. So being able to try and at least look at the system as a whole and use that sort of systems thinking. But anyway, side note, but it is a great book, and I thoroughly recommend it to anybody.
I'll have to send an email out and put some links.
Oh yeah, anybody that knows me knows there's two things. I have a dog, and I have more books on my Kindle than I've got time to read. So I take her for a walk, sit in the pub, and I try to get through my reading list as quickly as possible. But yeah, hopefully they help other people. I've found the books I've mentioned to be very valuable to me.
I bought some incredible books, and some of them I might even read one day. Just seem looking really interesting.
Yeah, making you feel guilty.
That's it. So the last item we had was about skills.
Yes. So so the biggest one for me is that the empathetic perspective. It's changing. If you take nothing away from this today, than anything, it's to say, actually, what is the person that I'm talking with struggling with? Forget what it is I want to achieve for now. Park that. It's really hard to do, but how can I understand what your role is and what you struggle with, and what is it that you really want to do to make progress? And then I can go away. I can take that and I can try and design a process or a new data engagement that in many cases helps you make that progress, but then gets the buy-in and the help from me. So it's really I have to work on it all day, every day. I don't think I'm naturally very empathetic. My wife will tell you, unfortunately, my mum wasn't very sympathetic with me when I grew up, so I just get on with it. But it's a real challenge to do. But you walk in and check your ego at the door and say, okay, I'm here to listen. I'm here to understand the person and be deeply interested in what they're telling me, because I can use that information to help them make progress and also to get them engaged in what I'm doing. And it's just something that you one of the great joys is you will have lots of meetings if you're in a data governance or data management role, so you get plenty of time to practice this skill and just try and use more of it every single day. Set yourself a target to really come away and say, did I listen well enough? Did I actually learn? If I play this back to that person, do they agree? Do they nod? Are they kind of saying, I don't think he really listened? Or do they turn around and say, that's right? And when you hear those two words, that's right, that tells you that you actually really did listen to the person and
you got a positive playback.
Yeah, it's just those two words. You hear it every now and again. If you don't hear that, you need to keep digging and you need to spend more time engaging people. But it isn't a skill that comes very naturally to many people. I don't think it's something I think you should teach in schools, because we all wander around, we run meetings, we spend all our time talking to one another, and I think there was something in the Fight Club movie that stuck out for me is that do you ever feel that people aren't listening, they're just waiting for their turn to speak? And a lot of meetings are like that. They're sat there, the Homer Simpson jugglings in the background or whatever. Once you shut up, they then start talking about whatever they're interested in, and your mind starts going. Getting that
And I guess if you're
communication
more
is
junior as well, and you're trying to sort of prove your existence, and while you're in that meeting, you see the important people, you're like, I've got to say something
yeah.
intelligent.
Yeah, but the interesting thing there is, I think somebody asked a question earlier on, and I said that's a great question. How many times do you ever hear that? Because if you don't hear people say that's a great question, you haven't stopped and made them think. And it's making people think. That's what creates space in your brain for a solution to drop into. And going back to what I'm talking about, marketing, this guy Clay Christensen, I think, said that. It's like, questions create space in your mind for solutions to fall into. Unless you ask a question that somebody says, that's a great question, then you leave it to fester, and then they come back and they say, well, so how do we fix that? And you say, well, maybe I could talk to you about data governance. Oh, that doesn't sound very interesting, but go on, because you're then helping them answer that question and understand
Through a
something.
way they hadn't thought of.
Yeah, but if you go there and you just make some statement that you think sounds intelligent, it might just bounce off them because without the context and the understanding and the experience that you've got, saying something about data, it might be meaningless to somebody else. So
Terrific. Got a little bit, well, virtually exactly 10 minutes
okay.
left of our hour. I wonder if maybe, I know you've done some great work about data training. Do you want to sort of talk a little bit about what you do, day job, while some more people, if you want to add their questions in the box, and then
Yeah,
so you have a couple of minutes, we'll get some questions in and then
yeah,
round it out.
absolutely. So we're based in Singapore, but actually one of the other side benefit of the pandemic is we now work with people all over the all over the world and do things via Teams. Um, as I said, we've been trying to solve this problem, the problem of bad data for many years, and I keep going further upstream. And so the real problem I still believe is a human problem, and it's how do we understand the people? How do we build better training that is fit for purpose, that gets people to make changes and draws them towards us? So that's a lot of the work that we do. I spend a lot of time actually teaching people. We've got an online academy, so there's a mixture of both the sort of traditional online come and take a course, and sort of more hands-on training, and we also make training for organisations. So I've gone from more consulting to more training, partly because I find I enjoy it more. You get to work with people and you get to understand their context and then generate some communication plan and training plan that's sort of fit for their purpose. So yeah, we're always interested in all of the problems that come around data because I like solving problems, I guess. Yeah, it's always the same, and it's also very different. Everybody comes along. Your role in your organisation is unique. There's nobody else that's ever going to be doing that. The problems that you face and the context that you find yourself in may be similar to others, and so therefore it's sort of building that picture and that tapestry and working out what the right set of things for you to do now is. Because there's 1,000 things you could do, there's 100 that you should do, there's 10 that you can do, and there's 3 or 4 that you must do. So how do you work out which those 3 or 4 are so that you can prioritize those, and make enough time in the day to be effective and to change things and to get the progress that the organization's paying you to deliver.
Okay, one question, conscious a lot of people on the call from all
Yeah.
over the globe. As someone said at the start, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah, indeed.
Have you noticed, is there a cultural difference? You worked in the UK and in Singapore.
Yep.
In terms of maybe your ability to ask questions, people's ability to respond, maybe the way that you inspire people, you have to play a different way if you're working in Middle East or Asia or Africa or
Yes.
States?
Yes, I have, is the short answer to that. And actually, one of the first pieces of training we put together, and it was talking about change management, and we had a big group from Thailand, and so we do follow up afterwards and said, hey, what's going on? How did you like it? Well, I liked all of the training up until the bit about change management, because none of that's realistic. I can't go and say that to my boss, or I'm not allowed to do this. And again, that's where the sort of cookie cutter, one size fits all training doesn't fit all. And so then you have to understand, well, how does that work in your culture, in your particular way? You're sat here in the organisation, you can influence these people. How do we change the way that we're delivering this so that you can actually use it. I do see a lot more interest from the Middle East at the moment, specifically Saudi Arabia. Some of the cultural challenges there, I'm aware they're there. I'm not. I don't know the solution to them just yet. But yeah, you can see slight differences, and even in Singapore, depending on is it a local Singaporean company. We've got lots of homegrown companies that have a more Singaporean culture versus if I'm walking into one of the big insurers there that may be more international. It's again, it's the nuance. It's the difference that makes it interesting, but that's also where the value is, if you ask me.
And I guess it goes back to what you said much earlier on about needing to ask the right questions that the person can then sort of say what they need.
Yeah.
So if it is, well, I'm in a culture where I'm not going to be able to tell the boss we need a new project because it just will not fly.
Yep, exactly.
Whereas
if I'm walking in and telling everybody you've got to get a seat, you see it in all the books, the DMBOK, whatever. You need an executive sponsor. I think I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much the thing in the DMBOK. It doesn't really tell you who that person is, how you go and get it, what they're going to do, or anything like that. It doesn't help anybody. So you go in and say, well, how can you influence and change your organisation from the position that you're in? I work with some people I've been working for many years who are only just, they've been trying to govern and manage their data. They're doing it on a best efforts basis. It's in addition to their day job, and now they're finally sort of becoming and getting a proper budget to do things. They all of a sudden they want to go and leap forward and get 5 out of 5 on a maturity assessment. And I said, well, that's not really realistic. Like how much progress can you make? And we always want more.
And do you want 5 out of 5? Might be 3 for your business. 3 out of 5 is
but more importantly, they've been there frustrated for 5 years trying to make the change they want to make. And so now it's the opportunity, and they want to seize it and run with it, which is understandable. We all would do the same thing, but temper that enthusiasm and make sure that you're running somewhere that's deliverable, achievable, has some benefits, and that we can quantify and prove that it was worthwhile. So, yeah.
Thank you. In terms of let's get some notes. There's a few things. So Matthew writes, we started trialing writing up our interviews with stakeholders as part of the framework, so they become the problem statements.
Yep.
That can be shown more widely. That's a great idea. Gary Nuttall said, asking locals how to deal with things locally is always a good approach.
So on the problem statements piece, there's a guy called Bob Mester who writes a lot of books about innovation and things like that. That's where this sort of 4 forces piece came from. What we use now, I use this template there. So there's pushes, which are always written when I insert something that happened in the past. It's pushing you. So I can is the pull, and then the anxieties and habits. And as I go back over the interviews that I'm doing, I try and pull out. So what is it more about, and what is it less about? What are the trade-offs that the person's willing to make to get that progress? So it's not really a traditional problem statement per se, but it's this sort
of
rich,
a boosted version.
Yes, it's the context. The context what creates value and meaning in the organisation, and understanding that helps you then look and say, well, actually, I don't know, might be finance and operations have a similar context, so we're solving the same problem for them. Whereas sales and marketing and whatever production, they're in a slightly different context. So we change our messaging to them, and we change what we're asking them to do to fit their needs and to fit their purpose. So, but yeah, great idea to write it all up.
So Gary said about the asking locals, but equally makes the point, as a non-local talking to a local, they might be giving you the answer they think you want to hear.
Yep.
So you got to be careful with that. And Seema comments about the importance and the right data owners and getting them bought in. Just in terms of follow-up, I'm conscious we've got a couple of minutes left.
Yep.
So I'll write up some notes from this.
Sure.
Certainly, if nothing else, about recommendations.
Yep.
And I'll share that, and also I think I'll do a feedback survey just to see what worked for people who've dialed in. Is this resonating? Is this something you'd want to do again? Is it adding value? Because frankly, if not, then why bother?
No, I mean you've given up an hour of your morning, evening, or afternoon. Right. So yeah, thank you for that. Hopefully, it's given you something that was worth that hour.
Just sort of housekeeping. So LinkedIn gives me the email address for everyone that signs up.
Okay.
But it has a box which says I'm allowed to send you emails about my stuff, or I'm not.
Okay.
If you said not, then I can tell you emails about the event. So I sent you a reminder yesterday to say, don't
Okay.
forget. I can send you a follow up saying, here's what we did. Hope you enjoyed it. But other than that, I can't send you anything. So if you haven't had an email from me saying, welcome to list, I'm glad you joined up, dataz.co.uk/register. I'll put the link in the email as well. And then I can tell you about future events. But I can sneak preview future event I've got coming up is in December the 7th, I think it is, Wednesday of that week, on procurement.
Okay.
And is looking at going, well, we want to buy some data tools or any tools, but for a data group, so what data tools. We want to buy the tools. How on earth do we go to market? How do we find from all different tools that are out there? And then we're going to go down two different paths.
Okay.
One is you've got a procurement team in your firm
Mm.
who stop you buying stuff, and they get in the way. And it's, well, how did you engage early enough along the way so you don't say, I find my favorite tool, but now you're stopping me because they're based in EU or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other thing we'll look at is you're in a smaller firm, there's no procurement team, and you've got a big vendor team who are really good with contracts negotiating, and you're there going, I don't know what to do. I've just got some money.
Yeah.
And again, some support. So that's a chap called Daniel Abda. He's a master of the Association of Procurement.
Okay.
Did the procurement strategy for London 2012.
Oh, right.
So he went shopping for the footballs and gymnastics barriers and all the other things that sports people needed
Yeah.
back then. So that is coming up. That'll be a webinar. So yes, do stay in touch, and we'll learn a bit then.
Yeah. Sounds
But
interesting.
Neil, thank you very much for joining us.
Well,
This is
thanks
the
for
end of your
inviting
stay in the UK
Yep.
for now.
Indeed.
So really appreciate it. And again, comments, feedback, all really, really appreciated.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody,
Neil.
for joining.
Charles.